The 2026 World Cup is expected to be the biggest football tournament in history. But just days before kickoff, a different story is dominating headlines. More than 170,000 people have signed petitions. Thousands of fans say they will stay away, and even senior football figures have raised concerns about the event. At the same time, reports suggest weaker than expected demand in parts of the tournament economy. So is this simply online frustration, or is the World Cup facing a real supporter backlash that organizers can no longer ignore? As the countdown to World Cup 2026 continues, a growing boycott movement has become one of the tournament's biggest off-field challenges. Across Europe and other parts of the world, fan groups, activists, and football supporters have publicly called for people to avoid attending matches in certain host locations. The concerns are not focused on one issue alone. Instead, they involve several topics, including travel restrictions, visa access, fan safety, affordability, and the overall experience for supporters. What makes this story significant is that the conversation has moved far beyond social media. Football officials, federation representatives, and former senior figures within the sport have all discussed the issue publicly. No national team has withdrawn from the competition. The tournament is still expected to proceed as planned. But the growing debate has created questions about whether supporters feel fully included in what FIFA has promoted as football's most global event ever. But the real story is just beginning. Supporters of the boycott movement point to several developments that they believe show growing dissatisfaction among fans. One of the most widely discussed examples is a petition in the Netherlands that reportedly attracted more than 170,000 signatures. The petition called for action regarding concerns surrounding the tournament and quickly gained international attention. Online communities supporting various boycott efforts have also expanded. Some groups now include tens of thousands of members discussing whether fans should avoid attending matches or reduce participation in tournament-related events. Meanwhile, officials from several European football associations have publicly discussed concerns surrounding the tournament. In some cases, senior figures suggested that football authorities should openly debate the consequences of current policies affecting supporters. There are also signs of economic caution. Industry reports have indicated softer hotel booking trends in some host locations. Analysts have also reported increased activity in ticket resale markets and adjustments to visitor forecasts. Adding further attention to the issue, former football executives and governance experts have questioned whether current conditions fully reflect the inclusive image that major international tournaments are expected to promote. And this is where the situation becomes more complicated. When FIFA awarded hosting rights to the United States, Canada, and Mexico, expectations were extremely high. The 2026 tournament was designed to be the largest World Cup ever staged. For the first time, the competition expanded from 32 teams to 48 teams. Organizers promoted the event as a celebration of football's global reach and a symbol of international unity. Many analysts predicted record attendance, record revenues, and unprecedented worldwide interest. Host cities prepared for millions of visitors, while businesses anticipated major economic benefits. However, as preparations continued, concerns gradually began to emerge. Discussions around ticket prices, travel logistics, accommodation costs, visa access, and supporter experience became increasingly common. Initially, these concerns appeared isolated, but over time, separate complaints from different groups started connecting into a broader conversation about who the tournament is really serving. And that conversation is now reaching a much larger audience. The potential impact of the boycott movement extends far beyond football itself. For supporters, the issue is deeply personal. Many fans spend years saving money for the opportunity to attend a World Cup. When travel barriers, visa challenges, or rising costs become obstacles, frustration naturally grows. For businesses, lower than expected visitor numbers could create economic concerns. Hotels, restaurants, transportation companies, and local tourism operators often rely heavily on major international events to generate revenue. host cities have invested significant resources into preparing for the tournament. Economic projections frequently depend on strong visitor spending throughout the event. If attendance falls short of expectations, some of those projections may need to be revised. There are also reputational risks. FIFA has consistently promoted football as a global sport that welcomes everyone. Critics argue that any perception of exclusion or limited accessibility could damage that message. Governments may also face questions about how travel policies interact with international sporting events. As football becomes increasingly global, the relationship between politics and sport becomes more difficult to separate. But that is only part of the story. Despite months of discussion about boycotts, no qualified national team has withdrawn from the tournament. In fact, players remain focused on competing. For most athletes, the World Cup represents the highest achievement in football, and few are willing to sacrifice that opportunity. This creates an unusual situation. The teams are participating, but some supporters are choosing not to. Rather than becoming a traditional political boycott led by governments or federations, the movement is evolving into something different, a fan-driven protest focused on attendance, spending, and public perception. The battle may not be taking place on the field at all. The deeper significance of this story goes beyond World Cup 2026. At its core, the controversy reflects a growing tension between large sporting institutions and ordinary supporters. Modern international tournaments generate billions of dollars in revenue and involve increasingly complex commercial arrangements. As costs rise, some fans worry that the traditional supporter is becoming less important than sponsors, broadcasters, and corporate partners. This perception matters because football depends heavily on emotional connection. Stadiums, fan festivals, and traveling supporters help create the atmosphere that makes global tournaments special. If supporters begin feeling disconnected from these events, organizers may face a long-term challenge that extends beyond any single tournament. The controversy also raises questions about future host selections. FIFA will continue planning tournaments for 2030, 2034, and beyond. Decisions made today could influence public trust in future promises regarding affordability, accessibility, and inclusion. From a political perspective, the debate highlights how international sporting events increasingly intersect with broader issues such as travel policy, globalization, security concerns, and national regulations. Football was once viewed primarily as entertainment. Today, major tournaments often become platforms where larger political and social questions are debated. Whether organizers agree with the criticism or not, the boycott discussion demonstrates that supporters are willing to use their economic influence and public voice to express concerns. And that may prove to be one of the most important developments of all. The World Cup itself is still expected to begin as planned, and millions of fans around the world will continue to watch and celebrate the tournament. But the controversy surrounding it is unlikely to disappear once the first match kicks off. The bigger question is not whether football will be played. It is whether supporters still feel fully connected to the event that claims to represent the entire football world. What happens during 2026 could influence future tournaments for years to come. Regardless of whether the boycott movement ultimately succeeds or fades away, it has already forced difficult questions into the spotlight. And as football looks toward future World Cups, organizers may discover that winning the trust of supporters is becoming just as important as filling the stadiums.